Alright, we're going to be working with slope-intercept form. This is pre-algebra notes for February 1st. This is called a linear equation because it will form a line. Linear equation forms line. Okay. We're going to choose values for our variable x. We're going to substitute them in, making our calculations to get y. So, if we pick, you want to pick low numbers since we're going to have to graph it as well. So let's pick 0, 2, and 3. If I take and plug in 0 in place of x, remember 3 times x, 3 times 0 minus 2. Whoops. Then we have 3 times 2 minus 2. Then we have 3 times 3 minus 2. We've taken each x value and substituted it in, and now we're going to make our calculations. 3 times 0 is 0, minus 2 is negative 2. That's going to create our ordered pair, 0, negative 2. Next, 3 times 2 minus 2 is going to be 4. So that's going to be our next ordered pair, 2, 4. And then when we plug 3 in place of x, 3 times 3 is 9, minus 2 is 7. And that's going to be our third ordered pair. So now we're going to come over here to our graph paper and we're going to graph this line on the coordinate plane by plotting these 3 points. 0, negative 2, we always start at the origin. 0, that means we don't go left or right. Negative 2, we go down to 2. Next, we have 2, 4. Positive 2, we go to the right 2, and up 4. And our third point, we're going to go over 3 and up to 7. And then we're going to take and connect our points. And we have just graphed that linear equation. All right. We used the equation and made a table. Now we're going to talk about the formula for slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. M stands for our slope. We know that from 8-6, where we had to find the slope. B is our y-intercept. Y-intercept. And write yourself a note. This is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay? It's where the line crosses the y-axis. All right. Let's try some practice problems or examples. Here we go. Y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Remember, our slope is the coefficient of x. So when we look at our equation, 1/2, our slope equals 1/2. And just to remind ourselves, if we were counting that slope on a line, that would be up 1 over 2. Next, our y-intercept, that's positive 3. It's the constant by itself. The next example, y equals negative 2x plus 5. Our slope is the coefficient of x, so that's negative 2. If we wanted to count that slope on the coordinate plane, If we make negative 2 into a fraction that doesn't change its value, remember that's going to be negative 2 over 1. Because it's negative, that's going to be down 2 over 1. Our y-intercept is going to be positive 5. Next, y equals x plus 4. Our slope is the coefficient of x. In front of x, we don't see a number, but remember, it's understood to be 1. If we change it to a fraction that doesn't change its value, it's going to be 1 over 1. Since it's positive, it's going to be up 1 over 1. And our y-intercept is going to be positive 4. And our next equation, y equals 3x. Our slope is 3, which is going to be 3 over 1. That's going to be up 3 over 1 when we graph it. Now, we do not see a constant by itself. When that happens, the y-intercept is 0. The y-intercept is 0. Now, that's just identifying the slope and y-intercept. Now we're going to use the equation in slope-intercept form to graph it. Here we go. Looking at this equation, y equals 1/2 x plus 2. The coefficient of x is our slope, so 1/2. Our y-intercept is positive 2. It's the constant that's by itself. This is the important part right here, folks. It says to graph the y-intercept for your first point. And this is because you have to have a starting point to count your slope. So we're going to go to positive 2 on the y-axis. Positive 2. Now we're going to count our slope to get to the next point. Since it's positive, it's going to be up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. And then we're going to take our straight edge and connect those points. And we've just graphed our linear equation using the slope-intercept form of the equation. Alright? And before you try to identify the slope and y-intercept, you've got to make sure the equation is slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Y is by itself. Alright, let's turn over. There's some space at the bottom. Sketching a coordinate plane. If we have the equation y equals 3, now you don't see the variable x, and that's because the slope is 0. The constant that's by itself is our y-intercept. So if we go to the y-axis and plot that point, and remember this is going to have a 0 slope, and 0 slope is horizontal line, and there it is. Now the opposite of a 0 slope is an undefined slope. The opposite of y is x. So let's sketch our coordinate plane, labeling the x and y axis. This time the equation is going to be x equals -2. Well, it's going to be totally vertical because this is undefined slope. So if we go to -2 on our coordinate plane on the x-axis and draw a vertical line. This is when we have a line that represents an undefined slope, and it's going to always say x equals a number by itself. When it's a 0 slope, it's going to say y equals a number by itself. Okay, let's try a few on the assignment. Let's go with number 1. We're not making a table. We're using the equation to graph in slope-intercept form. First, identifying our slope. Our slope is 2. That's the coefficient of x. Making sure we remember how to count that slope. Make it into a fraction that doesn't change its value. 2 over 1. It's positive, so it's going to be up 2 over 1. Our y-intercept is our constant, and that's 1. Remember, this is what we have to graph first. We have to graph our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is positive 1. And to count our slope, we're going to go up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. If you give yourself a few points to connect, chances are your line will be a little bit straighter. Okay? Now, let's go to problem number 4. We just had a problem like this. Y equals 7. You don't see the x variable, so that reminds us that the slope is 0, and it's going to be a horizontal line. Our y-intercept is our constant, and that's going to be 7. We're going to graph the y-intercept first, and it's positive 7. And then we're simply going to come in here and draw our completely horizontal line for 0 slope. Okay. Next, let's jump to problem number 10. Here we have x equals 2. And remember, when it says x equals 2 by itself, the slope is undefined. And it's going to be totally vertical. It's not going to have a y-intercept. So we're going to find x equals 2 on the x-axis. And we're going to draw our completely vertical line because it should be undefined slope. Okay. Your job is to finish the rest of the problems on this page and have it for Monday's class. We've written an equation, we've graphed an equation using a table, and we've graphed an equation using slope-intercept form.